Welcome to the Sons of Mjolnir podcast.
The Sons of... what?
This isn't your Sons of Macaroni, yeah!
The Sons of Mjolnir?
This is the Sons of Mjolnir, yeah, yeah!
What's up, guys, gals, non-binary friends? Welcome back. It's us, the Sons of Mjolnir. I'm Gorgon.
And I'm Fat Thor.
And if y'all can't tell from our backgrounds, if you're watching in video, or if you can't see it, I'm about to tell you what we're talking about. If you didn't see it on the title of the link you clicked to listen to this podcast, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.3.
Hey.
And just to get it all out from the start, we want y'all to know we love you. This is a very heavily spoiler-filled review because there's no way to talk about this movie as much as we love the Guardians without just getting into it and going hard. So if you haven't seen it yet, turn off this podcast if you don't want spoilers. I save it to listen to later. Put us in your to watch later on YouTube after you get out of the theater and go see the movie and then come back. But if you've seen it, thanks for staying. Glad to have you here. We're going to kick it off for you guys.
There's so much to talk about here, Gorgon. You've seen the movie. What was it, last night you went, right?
Yeah, I got out and I made it home at midnight. So it's real fresh. I was talking with one of our other good friends from comic Twitter, Jared, about it earlier in text because he's like, I need to talk to somebody. Can you talk about it? And I was like, yeah, shoot me a text, bro. Let's go. So it's been fresh on the brain.
Yeah, so super fresh for you. It's been about, I want to say maybe a week or so since I saw it. I've seen it twice now. So
yeah, but you got to see it at the premiere in LA, right?
Yes, luckily the comic gods have smiled down upon me. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to go to an early screening of it. And you're talking about you've been dying to talk about it with people. I think it was like a week before release that I saw it. I was dying, dude, that week. Like, I couldn't say anything. I wrote my review for it, but other than that, I couldn't talk to anybody about it. So I've been dying to get on here and discuss it with you. I've been dying for you guys to see it so we could all talk about it. But yeah, the premiere was awesome, though, to answer your question that I kind of blew over. But it was really cool.
No, that's fine. I did it go how you thought it was gonna go? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. It didn't go how I thought it was gonna go. It didn't go how I know Jared thought it was gonna go. It didn't go how what feels like comic Twitter thought it was gonna go. I think since this is a spoiler review, let's just address the elephant in the room right now. Everybody for the last year has been under the presumption they're gonna die. That James Gunn is going to do what James Gunn does to wrap things up. Kill people off violently.
I'm a superhero! I'm a motherfucking superhero!
Right, he's marketed it with verbiage talking about sadness and loss and these things, and it's been talked about as like his send-off, right? So-and-so's last time as a role, and so it seemed like he's gonna kill people off. And the marketing very much makes it feel like they're going to die. He doesn't kill anybody off.
No,
they all live, but the way it ends is it's almost like more painful of a twist in some ways than in some of them had died, right? Because we go through in the movie watching a couple characters almost die. And then keep specifically Rocket, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Right. Specifically Rocket, but also we worry heavily about Drax, right? For a bit, we worry about Nebula when the guards in the little biosphere thing are just blasting down Nebula.
There
we
were
worry about
multiple
Mantis for a
times.
minute.
There was multiple times in the film for multiple characters. I was like, this is it. Like, I was like, oh, this is the one. This is the one multiple times. And it just subverted me every single time. But honestly, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. And like one of my favorite things that I think James Gunn did, in my opinion, was that everyone lived. And like, I love that so much because like you just said, this movie has been talked about ever since, we've known about it, as this is the end of the Guardians. Like, this is the conclusion to the Guardians. The story ends here. Everything
Which
that we
it's not,
set
by the
up.
way, for anyone listening. It's not, right?
It's the end of this Guardians.
It's
This
the end of
team.
James Gunn's Guardians,
Yes.
right? He has very publicly said he would love it if another director
Yes.
picked him up and made their own story with it,
Mm-hmm.
and they left an ending that's already confirmed. Massive spoilers for the post credits. Star-Lord will return,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into that later. So this is not the end.
Yeah, no, it's not the end, but like I said, it is the end of this team of Guardians. And like you just said, the galaxy will always need its Guardians. So I was never under the assumption that the Guardians were just going to be completely done. But like I said, it is the end of these Guardians that we've known since 2014. And like I said, one of my favorite things about the movie is, like I said, everyone lives, but not only does everyone live, but everyone lives and gets to me, in my opinion, a very satisfying conclusion to their stories, in the sense of, if I know we're getting Star-Lord back, but even if we never got Star-Lord back, like, I am completely satisfied with how his story ended. Same goes for Nebula and Drax, and like literally every single person gets such a great conclusion to their story arcs that, like I said, I just really love it, because I feel like a lot of people these days think that in order for a character to be satisfyingly concluded, like Iron Man or somewhat, they have to die. And I think a lot of people just assume, like, oh, their stories are ending, so that means they have to die. But I like
Right.
how James was able to show that you can give a character a good, satisfying ending without the need of having to kill them off. And like I said, I just think it's really
Unusual
smart.
for him, right? He
Mm-hmm.
he is notorious for killing off characters. The man is incredible. And even his other work, right? What's God, I'm drawing a blank now, but his not Superman, that's violent with the kid.
Bright Star. What is it called?
Brightburn.
Brightburn.
Thank you.
Brightburn.
And then
Yes.
even his earlier work before that, it's very he kills people off. It's what James does. It shows some range for the man. It shows some restraint. It shows some ability to read the room and understand the the emotions that he's made us feel over the last 10 years for these
Mm-hmm.
characters. And we kind of just jump balls into this free form. For those of y'all who haven't seen it, Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.3, or even if you have, I guess we should give a quick recap. Is It's the third movie in the Guardians trilogy on the big screen, not counting the holiday special on Disney Plus, which you have to see.
Or the
And
Avengers stuff like Infinity War, Endgame.
it's about concluding Rocket Raccoon's story by telling us where he came from. And with him having to go back and kind of face those demons in the form of the High Evolutionary, who for James Gunn's version of Rocket is the person who made Rocket, right? Through torture and experimentation. And we get a really in-depth look at Rocket, how he came to be, and his intelligence and what makes him so special compared to the other things. And the High Evolutionary wants to kill him, be for it, and to steal his brain and analyze it, see if it's something he can copy, because the man is an egotistical madman. He at one point quoted saying, "There was no God, so I became it." So that should tell you all you need to know about the man. He is a
Yeah.
terrifying force to be reckoned with. And it's their journey fighting him through this, trying to save Rocket, keep him alive, and yet also save each other. And it's man, it's fucking crazy. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride, start to finish. James's liberties he's taken with Marvel Comics in the way he's adapted them to the big screen. Some of them are changes that kind of sat on the fence for a lot of us, but I think most of them have paid off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie really shows it in the end, right? Because let's be real. This is the most Peter Quill has felt like Peter Quill from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think this might be the best Peter Quill we've got in the MCU, in my opinion. Pure rage, like, how dare you? No one will kill my friend. Anybody in
Yeah.
my way will go down for my friend.
I
Right.
was just about to say that. I feel like in my opinion, it feels like this Peter Quill, like this Star-Lord that we get in this third volume, which I thought he was a lot darker and a lot more intense than we've seen him in the previous movies. And that's not to say that there's still the wisecracks that we, know and love, the jokes that we come to love from Star-Lord, but it definitely is, like I said, a darker version of this character. And I think Chris Pratt, in my opinion, I know people out there have their opinions on him as, personally. I'm just talking about him as Star-Lord. I think that this is probably my favorite performance of him as Star-Lord. And I thought he gave great performances in the other two movies, but there's a moment in this movie, and it's towards the end when they just faced off with the High Evolutionary. They're trying to get some sort of data from one of his like henchmen people, and Quill literally just throws dude out the window. And I'm thinking, like, in my mind, like the Peter Quill we usually know, oh, he's gonna lift him up at like the last second, that's like a scare tactic. There, once they get to the ground, he's gonna get what he needs. He straight up murks dude, like brutally. Like they hit the ground and he and like even gives him an extra little when he hits the ground, and then like knives the thing out of his freaking head. I was like, oh damn. Like, okay,
nice.
Quill. Yeah, like that. I love that moment. But when I first saw that, like in that screening, I was like, oh shit. Like I was a little taken aback. I was not expecting that.
There was unabridged selflessness too with this Quill, right? It was all about, this is my friend, and he can't lose another, right? Quill should feel damaged, right? At this point in the trilogy, he's lost so much. And I think that's been the biggest difference between him and Comics Quill. Is Comics Quill has lost a lot and been through a lot of shit to become the person he is. This Quill hasn't really. He lost his mom, sure, and that's where we start from, but it makes sense that guy's kind of like a wise talking jackass, right? And notice the more the movies go on, the less of that he is, right? Because over the time with the movies, he loses more and more and more,
but also finds more. He finds the Guardians. He finds the love and
for him to just hang on to. But he's lost. He's lost like his connection with the Ravagers. He's lost Yondu, the guy who was basically his dad, right? He lost his actual dad. Had to fight him. Turns out he's a god who's a planet and also an absolute dickhead. And you have to kill him, right? Kill a whole fucking planet. It's you lose Gamora, the woman that you've been in love with for years, and new Gamora is so different, right? Doesn't remember you at all, doesn't it's like you're having to fight against versions of yourself and versions of someone you knew constantly, and it's he's in a darker headspace, and I think Pratt did really really well with it. I think Zoe
Saldana
did, with Gamora, just being a darker, different version of Gamora did really good. Nebula obviously stole a lot of the show.
Dude,
with
Karen Gillan, I love her. Like, out of all the Guardians, I'm gonna preface this right now. Like, there's not a bad performance in the movie. Like everyone, in my opinion, this is my favorite version of all of these characters. Like everyone brings their A game, in my opinion. But like I said, I just want to specifically shout out Karen, because I mean, like, not only is she so good as Nebula in all the movies, but she's one of those people that's like, when I see interviews of her and like, on red carpet or whatever, like it blows my mind that she is Nebula. Like the voice, like she's like, quirky and like funny. It just is like, it's one of those, I'm like, how do they change you into Nebula? Like, it's like she's so good. No, literally, that's what I mean. And I mean, Nebula has had probably the biggest character growth out of all the Guardians now that she is a Guardian.
Some of it. Absolutely. She absolutely is a Guardian now, right? And it's the character growth between some of the characters have been crazy. The only performances, and it's not they did bad, they did incredible, but I wished we would have gotten more from the characters throughout the trilogy out of Mantis and out of Drax, right? Yes, this movie did a great send off for them to put them in incredible positions for should a new director pick them up and move forward with the story. Absolutely. However, I wish we could have got a little more out of them when we had them on the screen. And that's just me. We'll get into how I feel about Adam Warlock later. But
the Warlock, dude.
Right. It was good. Everybody did well, right? I and the voice acting for Rocket's friends, right? Layla,
Mm-hmm.
Teefs, and Floyd. I really liked those characters a
Yeah,
lot.
I love those characters, and like you said, the voice acting for all of them. I particularly really like Teefs. I thought Teefs was really great. Like the way he delivered the lines, like the accent and everything. I thought it was really great. But I really loved this Gamora. I thought, like, don't get me wrong, I never disliked Gamora from the previous films. I've always liked her as a character. But what I
Right.
really loved about her in this film, one, it just seems like Saldana as an actor is just having a blast. Like it seems like I feel like she was having more fun as Gamora in this turnaround than she ever has. Again, like just from the outside looking in. And I just loved how, we always hear like, oh, Gamora is the deadliest woman in the galaxy, like daughter of Thanos, like
Mhm.
ruthless assassin, blah 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 blah. And don't get me wrong, she's always been a badass in the other two films, but I feel like this film really shows us, which I mean, it's because she technically is Gamora from 2014 or whatever, but this movie really shows us like why she has that title of deadliest woman in the galaxy and like this deadly assassin. Like that's who she is in this film. She's not the family, the Guardian's mother or girlfriend or whatever. She's just a ruthless assassin, which leads to some really funny and great moments in the movie. But yeah, I really loved this new version of Gamora. I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, it's she definitely was closer to her comic counterpart in this than any other movie
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. I I didn't like this Gamora.
Really?
Um, I didn't like. I
Okay.
think Zoe did amazing playing her. I
Mm-hmm.
think the way the character was wrote was fantastic, but like her, I did not. There is a level of unfriendly that is just absolutely going above unfriendly, just to go out of your way to be a dick to someone for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I and it's like she knows that this man is heartbroken, right? That you existed, that he was in love. She's just being mean to be mean for parts of it, and I
Yeah.
didn't like
Didn't vibe
that.
with that.
And maybe that's just because of what I'm going through in my personal life right now, with some things, right? But I was like, nah,
Mm-hmm.
that is absolutely unneeded. Like the man is a mess. You
Yeah.
can you can stop trying to kick a man when he's down and had just had his legs chopped off, right?
Yeah.
You can stop.
No, that's
Uh,
completely fair. That's completely
yeah.
justified criticism, I think, for sure. Like I said, I just really enjoyed it because, like I said, I felt like it was closer to this reputation of Gamora that we
Oh,
always hear
absolutely.
about.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
no,
like I
no
said,
disagree on that. Like I
yeah.
said, I think the closer to her comic counterpart, absolutely.
Hmm.
I just thought she was an absolute fucking bitch.
I mean, hey,
I
that's fair.
you know,
Uh,
um,
yeah.
it's like I said, I was gonna get I felt on Adam Warlock later, and he's one of the things I wish I could change, and
Hmm.
it's honestly just because he's not comic Adam, right? Like let's get it the way. Paul did great with the character he was given, absolutely 100%.
Hmm.
And we've waited so long to get Adam Warlock, right? But it's they make the line that to the priestess makes the line talking to the High Evolutionary about you opened his egg too soon, right?
Hmm.
He's basically a child. And but the way they portray childlike is kind of like dumb and ignorant in some places,
Hmm.
right? Where it's come on now,
Yeah.
it just wasn't as necessary as it was. I feel like
Hmm.
he managed to be serious and funny at the same time and have like moments where you can tell he's being serious but it comes off as funny very well, so
Hmm.
I thought he did great with that in it. I think he did fantastic with the role. I wish we got a little more satisfaction out of the
Hmm.
Adam Warlock than anything than what we got for what he was tasked with, right? I
Yeah.
do like the way they left it for should another director pick it up, he will now be with the Guardians,
Hmm.
and I loved that.
Yeah. Well, we
I
100% know Warlock will be back, whether it's with Guardians or not. Like he's too big of a character to just
I
introduce and then
mean,
never do it. Like I think it's safe to say will be back as Adam Warlock despite another Guardians movie. I think that's pretty safe to say.
I would hope so. I would hope so. I don't know right now.
I think so,
But
man. There,
it's
like I said, Adam Warlock's a huge. I mean, you know as well as I do. Like he's a huge
but yeah, but I mean,
character.
so is Hela, and they literally brought Hela for a one off to
Yeah,
Ragnarok,
yeah.
and allegedly killed her off in a single film, no problem.
Allegedly, but I think there's a difference with heroes and
It's
villains, though. Also, I think
okay,
when
but
a
they very
hero
much
is
painted him out.
introduced,
They very much painted him out like he was a villain in this for quite a bit of it because he was to the Guardians for it.
I
Despite
mean,
he's
like
a
you said,
hero
he's a child. He doesn't know what the
in the
hell's
end.
going on.
I don't know, man. I really don't.
Uh-huh.
I think it would be hard for another director to just try to pick and choose and be like, I'm gonna pluck this one out of what James left off the table
Mm-hmm.
because it's immediately gonna make all of us as fans go, hold on, what about all the other pieces on the board that were left by James?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think they'd be hard pressed to just pick him up and throw him into the rest of the MCU.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's coming
a lot
though.
of other setup and
Yeah,
picking other things up.
I think he's definitely, like I said, I think he's going to be back for sure. But I do want to say though, like you said, I do. Part of me wishes we got more of Adam Warlock, and like you said, the setup was a little bit more, so we could kind of see where his character might go from here. But upon thinking about it and reflecting on it, like when I was writing my review for this movie, I was really thinking hard on Adam Warlock and like what I wanted to say about Poulter's performance and everything in it. And what I really landed on, and this is how I feel with both Adam Warlock and Cosmo, I feel like they were great additions to the movie. And I think that their inclusion achieved what it was supposed to do, in the sense of we're supposed to be introduced to Adam Warlock, like who the hell is this guy, and establish him as a powerhouse of the MCU. And I think that the film achieves both of those things, but it doesn't take away from the core story, which is our main Guardians, which we've been talking about. I feel like, the movie at the end of the day, it, like we've been talking about, it's supposed to be the conclusion of these character stories. So while we are introducing new characters, I think any more would have taken away from that main theme of, like I said, our Guardians. So, like I said, I'm not too, like, while I obviously, the comic book nerd in me would have loved more Adam Warlock and him have a little bit more to do in the movie. Like I said, I think at the end of the day, it makes the Guardian story hit harder because, we're not that distracted with, like I said, all these new players coming. Like, they do what needs to be done in terms of their introduction, but all that other stuff will be left for the future to figure out. For some, like you just said, some other director will pick up Adam Warlock and get more into like him as a character. But this was just supposed to introduce us.
One of those rare ones where you and I disagree.
That's fine.
This is one of those rare ones.
I love disagreeing.
I very much enjoyed him,
yeah.
But I feel like you could take Adam Warlock out of this movie entirely, and it not affect the main plot at all, because it really doesn't. It doesn't matter that Adam was going to go to get Rocket. High Evolutionary was going to send somebody else. It doesn't matter that the other ones of his race, the priestess and them, were coming in because like sure, they sent Adam, but they were coming in on their own. It didn't matter that he was there. They were always going to be there regardless, right? It just added a little more extra fight scenes to it, that like if he weren't there, what would they have done? Expanded more on the High Evolutionary and Rocket. The thing that we were all enthralled by. I honestly feel like you could have taken him out and it wouldn't really affected the movie.
I mean, he was really like kind of like match, like to start the adventure off. But other than that, he was not needed. Like you just said, like, yeah, they could have like the High Evolutionary could have sent anybody.
I think my whole deal is with it is it's the classic. It's the first time I have ever felt like the argument I see online about the MCU with cutscenes that don't lead up to anything big or don't deliver, where I have felt that. Because we knew right at the end of 2, that's the egg. That is Adam fucking Warlock, right? We felt like Adam was going to be the big next villain or person that they have to fight, going to be this massive be all end all fight for the Guardians, right? That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I just feel like because the way the character was used, it did not deliver to what anybody expected with that level of an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Given
and I can
100%
agree with that for sure. But I think we just feel differently about, like you said, like that disappointed you. For me, I didn't really care. Like I said, that like it's been a huge egg for a while, but I was more concerned with, like I said, he's in the world now. He's, out of his cocoon, and we see
Right.
like from his introduction, like he's a new powerhouse of the MCU. And like I said, for me, those were the two things I really needed, and like, that's good enough for me. And we'll talk about the end credit scene and what that will mean in a little bit, but yeah, man, I honestly, I know it sounds weird, but I love when we disagree because it gives us more to talk about. We
I
agree.
wanted more,
No, we
and
agree
see, like
so
Cosmo,
often. So
I thought Cosmo was great. For me,
yeah,
in fact, I
Cosmo is
think
great.
Cosmo was perfect. I have no problems with Cosmo. Cosmo has been one of these characters that's always existed in Guardians, right? In Guardians
Mhm.
1, Cosmo is in the collectors, right? The
Yeah.
collector has Cosmo.
Mhm.
In one of the tubes in the back, right? And I can't remember where Cosmo was in two, or Cosmo wasn't two at the end or something. But then we
I think she
get
pops up.
Cosmo in the Christmas special.
Mhm.
In the Christmas special doing stuff, right? And now we have Cosmo in this one, and Cosmo is so funny
Yeah.
because
Her and
it's a
Kraglin is
dog,
so good. The
right?
the
That
dynamic between her and Kraglin is so good in the movie.
Kraglin being a butt.
Yeah.
I won't lie. The whole deal, right, with the whole like, nope, you're a bad dog, and like it just
So
tearing
funny.
Cosmo up and having Cosmo making everybody miserable. That's such a dog thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a super smart, hyper intelligent animal that does
Mhm.
like crazy telekinesis, but it's it's still a dog, and
Yeah.
that really hurt Cosmo. And
Yeah.
it made in the fight scene there at the end where they're like a, a dog, and she pulls out the two walls, and
Mhm.
I thought to myself, oh my god, he's finally gonna say it, he's gonna do it, and he's like, she's a good dog, and
Yeah.
she smashed it. I won't lie,
Yeah,
I was
literally.
so stoked, like
Yeah,
he
I
finally
loved.
told Cosmo she's a good dog.
And like you said, like I was talking about with Adam Warlock, I think Cosmo is even a better example of that, where I think she was put in the movie like the perfect amount. Like I said, going into it, I thought she was going to be a lot more involved with like the main adventure, but I think they did it well with, like you said, they gave her moments, but not too much to distract us from, the main thing of going on. But I think one of my favorite lines in the movie, going back to the whole good dog, bad dog thing, I love, they're like sitting around playing poker or whatever, and she's like, the Soviets strapped me to a rocket and blew me into space, knowing that I would never return, and like blah blah blah. But they never once called me a bad dog, and like
And
everyone's
everybody
just
just
like, like,
thrown Howard the Duck, everybody just like Kraglin, please take it
yeah,
back.
that's
Yeah,
so funny.
I loved it, man. I
Now,
loved it. I,
we're talking
I
about all these characters and all this stuff, and that reminds me, we got to talk about kind of the man of the hour of the movie, the High Evolutionary, Chukwudi Iwuji
yeah.
as the High Evolutionary. Oh my God, so good!
Uh,
Like,
yeah, so the High Evolutionary is obviously a bit different than the comics.
mm,
I not a lot, but a bit. We have this incredible arc with the High Evolutionary and what he was doing, right? With him getting some science from Hydra, and these are people on Earth and stuff. What he was doing here on Earth, right? What that he compiled and all this bullshit, and we get it specifically in the Spider Woman run by Carla Pacheco and the Crazy Goat team, right? That should have never ended. Hint, hint, Marvel editorial. Anyway, it's still bitter about that, but it's this incredible like look in depth to him, and there's not, I won't say there's humanity to him, and I won't say there's not maliciousness and this perfection looks, there absolutely is. And what we're seeing there is the beginning of his particle ray, that's a single beam of light ray that can transform and change anything, fix anything that steps into it, right? With the program, he's just flip a switch, go. Where we're seeing early versions of that, right? It's the man did amazing. He made him
mm,
fucking terrifying, a force to be reckoned with. I that his acting was incredible with it. I'm normally not a fan of Marvel having what we quote one-off villains, end quote.
mm-hmm.
Right. But
But
it
is
felt
he one
good
off though?
for the High Evolutionary, and it's, oh yeah, absolutely, for, oh yeah, he's not surviving that. No way. But
I don't know,
it
man.
felt good. In the regard of like like other one-off villains, it feels like it's in for a lot of term with Marvel, like, you know, the hero has to win. The hero's going to win because the hero always wins.
Mm-hmm.
James really made us feel like they were going to lose repeatedly. The face off with him at the end is very much understood. This is life or death.
Mm-hmm.
We are more than likely going to die. Rocket has almost died. Drax has almost died. Nebula has almost died. But we're walking in this battle we know we're under equipped for head first because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what heroes do, right? 1 or 2 moments, wait.
4 or 5 moments, that's all it takes.
Yeah, and that was one of their moments, right?
Absolutely.
They did what heroes do, and it truly felt like he is probably going to kill a couple of them in this fight the whole way through. It didn't feel one off. It felt like an actual life or death fight that they barely escaped from. And it felt very well done. I cannot talk about how much I ended up loving the High Evolutionary being the villain of this film.
Mm-hmm. Well, it fits.
So
I think it just fits so many.
Backstory.
It fits so many great themes, you know, like his character, like it fits so many great themes of, you know, loss, grief. The way I see the High Evolutionary is like, one, he's absolutely insane, like completely bonkers in the brain, but he's a man that's like just absolutely obsessed with this goal, like his goal in the movie being of to perfect society, and he has just like driven himself insane with this goal that like he thinks is like all on his shoulders. And the thing I really love about Chukwudi's performance is, which I feel like when I say this, we're, you know, we don't really get many comments, but if we did get comments, people in the comments would be like, oh, well, what about this villain? What about this villain? What about this villain? But, you know, in my mind, like just thinking off the cuff right now, I feel like he's one of the first villains, or at least one that we've gotten in a long time in the MCU, that is just downright bad. Like he's just evil, you know, like don't get me wrong, Thanos was 100% evil and everything, but he has the whole, you know, resource management, you know, thing. Like you can kind of sympathize with him or like see his point of view a little bit, you know. Same thing with like the villain from Shang-Chi, or, you know, Killmonger, you know, which I love villains like I love a villain that you can kind of see their point of view. But on the flip side of that, I really loved how like they're just like, nah, this is just a bad dude. Like there's no sympathizing with High Evolutionary. There's no like, oh yeah, I see what he's saying. You know, it's like, nah, don't, you know, you don't like him. You're not supposed to like him. And I liked that a lot. And I felt like it was one of those villains that I really didn't know what he was gonna do next. Like very unpredictable, you know what I mean? And yeah, I thought he was so fun to watch on screen.
Terrifying, intimidating. Very intimidating, powerful presence. It was very well done as a villain. I very much enjoyed watching him. Sorry, there was a gnat. I very much enjoyed watching him die. Like I wanted him to die.
I think everyone did.
And that's rare for me with a cape villain these days in movies. Like that was nice.
I love that.
That was nice.
That moment. Speaking of his quote unquote death, I'm still under the assumption you don't see a body. There's not an official death, so I'm gonna leave that just kind of open. But
I truly believe he's dead. I think the only way he could come back is if he segmented part of his intelligence, have like a backup or something, which I wouldn't put past the High Evolutionary, right? In a different robot suit somewhere or something. I wouldn't put that past the High Evolutionary. It's very on brand. But it would be really, really hard.
Yeah, I think
for another director to pick up the High Evolutionary, change the form of them, put them in another film, and have it pick up off of this one and top in performance, use in storyline, use in plot, what we got out of him in this. You know what I mean?
It wouldn't. It's not going to
it would
happen.
be
It's not
hard.
going to happen. Yeah. Not only is it hard,
Yeah.
but it's
So
not going to happen. I think it's
I
just
think
I
he's
think
dead.
Awuji is just so great, and I want him back as opposed to like the High Evolutionary as a character. So I think a lot of that is where that's coming
Yeah.
from for me. Like he's just such a great actor. But going back to what I was saying with his death, I think one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I think probably will be everyone's one of their favorite parts, the the name's Rocket Raccoon. That part was just so freaking good. And honestly, it kind of made me feel like an idiot, to be completely honest with you, because obviously throughout the movies, that's been kind of like a shtick for Rocket, like, oh, I'm not a raccoon. Like obviously people call him a raccoon because he is. And he's like, oh, I'm not a raccoon. Like that's been a kind of shtick throughout the movies. And I never once like I know the character from the comics. Obviously, he's Rocket Raccoon, but I never even once put together that like, oh, they don't call him Rocket Raccoon in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, and once he said it in this movie, he's like, the name's Rocket Raccoon. I'm like,
Right.
holy shit. Like I said, I felt like an
He
idiot. I'm
embraced who
like, I
he is.
never even put those two together. And I'm like, that was the whole thing. Like, that was the point of the joke over all these years when he's like, I'm not a raccoon. I'm not a raccoon. Like, it's because he hasn't accepted who he is. And once he does, he can take on his iconic comic book name of Rocket Raccoon. And like I said, I know that's kind of a small thing for some people,
Not
but
to
I was like, holy shit, dude,
not
it
to
all
detract
comes
from that with
together.
humor. Not to detract from that with humor, but
No.
I did see a marketing video that James shared. I'm pretty sure it was James, or maybe I saw it on TikTok, where it's all the different characters through Marvel calling Rocket names that are not raccoon, like all these
Mm.
other different animal names and
Like
nicknames that he's been called
Badger,
over the years.
Trash
And it,
Panda.
yeah, like I like just a badger, rabbit, like a million different things.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me that he hasn't called himself anything other than Rocket, right? But it makes sense now because that's the name he chose instead of being called by the experiment number, right?
A9P13.
And it's yeah, and it felt so powerful. You're exactly right. In that moment where he says the name's Rocket, Rocket Raccoon.
Dude.
It's
Ooh,
because he had
chills,
just
bro.
tried to
Chills.
rescue the baby raccoons and saw it there, right where they came from, species, genus, all that, and saw
Mm-hmm.
raccoon, right? And it's he had that experience with Lila. That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. We can talk more on that later.
Dude,
Where we're
yes.
right there, where
I say let's
he's
start
so
talking
close
about
to dying,
Rocket.
but she gives him this speech. She gives him this speech and she says, right, you can't yet. You still have a task to do, right? And he's like, what do you mean? And she basically like said, soldier on, right? As he
Mm-hmm.
came back to life instead of almost going through the light to the other side. And it's like he's like, what purpose do I have? And he gets to the point where he's rescuing these animals and he sees Raccoon. And it's like it was that whole moment where she told him the story was yours all along. You just had to accept it. And bro, that moment when he
Say,
called himself
dude.
Rocket Raccoon, it was the full encapsulation of he has accepted who he is, what he is, that this is his story. I
Mm-hmm.
fuck what happened to him in the past and the trauma. Like it ain't happening to nobody else. Man was done running, all of it. Just go. I,
Mm-hmm.
bro, my whole theater stood up in that moment and just yeah.
Yeah.
I
It is such a great
so
moment.
good,
Yeah. And like you said,
so good.
it just encapsulates everything with the character so well. And like I'm I'm like at a loss for words even just thinking about it again, just because it's so good. But that just I think is a perfect segue. Let's talk about Rocket. Like we've talked about him, going through this, but I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. And I mean, like Lila said, it's been his story all along. And we've had like Rocket's story kind of subtly be told in the background almost of the previous Guardians movies. And I just really love like the part you were just talking about when he's has the kind of dreamscape with Lila and the Rocket Raccoon moment.
Oh, it's not Dreamscape, man. It was about to die.
No, yeah, like
he's about to cross into death.
Yeah, like straight up, he's at the last stop. But I just love how we learn throughout the movie, like we mentioned, the High Evolutionary, his whole goal is to, create the perfect society. And we learned that he was actually successful with Rocket. And whatever, Rocket was basically the success of this experimentation. And that's why the High Evolutionary wants him back, because he wants whatever's in his brain that worked the first time that he, for whatever reason, cannot replicate. And I just think it's so great because it just ties all together with that one of his famous lines from the first movie where he says, ain't no thing like me except me. And I think that theme is captured perfectly here, because we learn that there really is no thing like him, and he is one of a kind. And not only one of a kind, but we also have seen there's that great scene in the first Guardians when he has that kind of little monologue.
He thinks I'm some stupid thing, he does. Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster.
We learn in this film, like, he was never a monster. He was never, some like jacked up, which I mean, he was experimented on, but he was the success. And he is the one that, has the perfect society, that's Rocket. And I just thought, like, what a great way to bring this character full circle. And like, it just hits every emotional beat. And it was just so good, man. Like, I'm getting a little misty just talking about it. Like, it's just good.
It was fantastic, and it definitely delivered for Rocket the expectations. All the marketing for this movie had made about how much it would be about his story.
Big shout out though to, we're talking about Rocket, and don't get me wrong, I love Bradley Cooper, and Bradley is amazing in this film. I think that the kind of heavier material, I think he really chews on really well in this. Like, he's been really good in the other films, but I feel like with the more emotional material he has, like, he's really, again, like we talked about earlier, there's not a bad performance in the movie, but he really brings it hard in this one. But I also
incredible with it.
Yeah. I also want to give a huge shout out though to Sean Gunn, someone I think that people overlook a lot of times, who, yes, he does play Kraglin.
Right. He does all the mocap for Rocket, if y'all aren't aware.
Yeah, so he does the mocap for Rocket. He has since the first Guardians. He did Infinity War, Endgame, and a lot of this, like, yes, Bradley does the voice, but even like the facial expressions of Rocket that we see in the movie, a lot of that is Sean. And like I said, I just want to give him a huge shout out. I feel like sometimes he's overlooked. It's a team of people that, create the final product of Rocket. But I think he is a major part of how Rocket feels on screen, and like how he feels like a true, like, living character. I think a lot of that credit goes to Sean. So I want to give him his flowers. And like I said, he did a
Agreed. I was talking with someone in that regard on seriousness, right, with this movie, and we were talking about, should they have shown in gory depth and detail the torture and what happened to Rocket Raccoon. And on the one hand, I wanted to see it, right, make us hurt. But on the other hand, we did hurt. We didn't have to see it, we could hear it. Right, we could see the looks on all the other Guardians' faces as they're seeing this lost recording, right, that's stored away. We can hear it in the way Mantis turns away and the things she says, and especially when Nebula, who's made such growth as a person, sounds hurt as she says, "It's worse than what Thanos did to me."
See, I think to me that line encapsulates everything that we don't need to see.
All of their acting made it where we didn't have to see it because we felt it without having to.
Yeah,
it was and speaking of Nebula and Rocket's relationship, right? I never expected those two would become the friends that they are through the three, but it makes sense how they did, right? Their banter back and forth, looking back as I rewatched 1 and 2. leading up to this. The end, though, I didn't. The scene where the comms finally get picked up by Quill and he can hear Nebula, and they're talking, and she's so focused on the mission and trying to rescue the kids, and she is so mission driven. She has stepped up as this leader and protecting people and this huge team player. She has a home. They become her family, right? She stood up to Gamora earlier in the movie and is like their family. And for her, huge balls. But it definitely, when she heard Rocket, and he's alive, and everybody was quiet, and she says Rocket, and he talks back, and she just like has to set the kid down because she starts to cry. I had just finished stopping crying, and that shit
got you again.
Me cry now, like that shit hit me so hard. Person who's become so strong with herself, grown so strong of a leader, just lose full focus in a moment, and just remember why they're there at its core, and just start crying. Just, oh, that hurt me, man.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget also, which I haven't really seen anyone talk about, but I feel like a lot of people forget, you know, when the blip happened, Nebula and Rocket were the only Guardians left. So they had 5 years where they were basically the only Guardian. So I'm sure like they got very close in that 5 years. It's not really gone into in the movie very much, but like you said, I think that scene kind of exemplifies this perfectly. Is, you know, I think Nebula and Rocket have a special relationship, but even among the rest of the Guardians.
Their relationship, particularly with the way the movie ended with it, seems so... It was really special to me. I like how they went from being people who were at ends from the first time they met to people who would go to hell and back for each other. In what we got on screen, but what's implied from off screen, like you're saying, with it all together. It ends with, you know, Nebula saying when everybody goes their separate ways, and Peter Quill's like, I'm gonna go to Earth and find my grandpa and do what I need to do for me. And Mantis is like, I'm gonna go find me and what it means to be Mantis and what I want. And she takes those 3 battery eating monsters with her. Oh, I love that, right? She's gonna go become the queen from the comics we know. I'm so excited for her. Hopefully somebody picks that up in the future and makes it big. Please do, whichever director's out there, please. But when Nebula told Drax, you know, like, I've seen you today, you weren't meant to be a destroyer. You were meant to be a dad.
Dude, yes, that's a perfect segue. I want to talk about Drax.
Right, that shit hit me hard, right? Because like he is very different than comics Drax, right? He has been since the start, and that's the difference. That is the difference right there. This Drax cares and wanted to be a dad, and that. Bro. And then Nebula says she's going to step up and she's going to build nowhere to be a home for all these children they've rescued, all these animals they've rescued, right? She is going to build a home like she never had. That's her exact verbiage. And everybody salutes Rocket, saying, you are the captain now. You're the leader of the Guardians now. And he steps up to go do that. So it's him and Kraglin and Cosmo and Warlock and Nebula and now Phyla Vel.
I would say, dude, Phyla Vel
at the end.
It slipped her in kid, so slick.
Huge toy for whoever decides to pick them up in the future, right?
Well, with the Marvels coming pretty soon, it's not. I don't think it's an accident that Phyla is coming into the mix.
Well, it's I was reading an article on that today, or a comment where he was talking out. They're like, whose decision was any of that? He's like, me, 100% me from the beginning to the end. I love that. Their relationship, how it grew to where it will leave them for the future, I think was perfect. Phyla was added. We had some great moments with Mantis that I loved. Her calming the beast, talking to the beast, right? I love seeing her fight since we started seeing that in the holiday special. And now I love the hallway fight scene where Gamora was slapping bitches around, right? And it felt like her.
Fight.
Peter Quill self-sacrifice, right? Peter Quill self-sacrifice that he didn't even think about. It just happened to ended up being not one, right? Was perfect. But it's those two stole the show for me. Nebula and Rocket the whole way through.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that going back to Drax and all that,
Oh
honestly, like
man.
we talked about, parts that, made us tear up during this movie. And to this day, it's been like 2 weeks since I seen it last now. And I don't know why, but every time I think the one part that really gets me every time is Drax dancing at the end. And like not even like his goodbye to Mantis, which is also really sad, but when he starts dancing with everybody, like, dude, that is like the most emotional moment for me. Like you said, that whole thing that Nebula says about you weren't meant to be a destroyer, you were meant to be a dad. And like again, it's been a kind of shtick throughout the previous movies. In the first one, he has that line like, some people are dancers and some are not. And, with Gamora and Star-Lord. And then in the second one, he had, it's like dancing is for idiots, like my Ovette, that everyone would be dancing and she would be dead still, like blah blah blah, like his
Yeah.
thought that people who dance are idiots. And then at the end, for him to embrace that and like start dancing, I don't know, man, like it just is so good. And every time I think of that, I start smiling, and like it just makes me so happy and like sad, but
He had a
happy
moment with
sad,
Mantis that made me cry. And I don't know if you caught this in the movie theater. You probably hadn't, and maybe if you didn't, this is a fresh take for you to see through my eyes. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see, because I was talking to one of my friends, like I didn't even catch that. Right? It's we have heard Mantis say a couple times now, particularly in this movie. She said it once, right? I that it's not or something about like it's not right to use your powers on your friends. You're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally snaps when she's shouting at Nebula
Mm-hmm.
and going off and standing up for herself and just like done. This isn't the person who is like the super powered empath, right? Who's been feeling all these emotions, finally lets it out like how she's feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and goes off on Nebula and says it doesn't matter if Drax is stupid and are an idiot, and how he brings these other, he makes us laugh, and then he cares about us and he loves us and he's our friend, and that should be enough, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
looks at her and he says, "You think I'm an idiot?" She goes, "Yes, of course." And then when
Mm-hmm.
she grabs his face and looks him gently and says, "Forget it," I knew that it was because she loved him, because she constantly says that's not something you're supposed to do to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it because she knew that what she was saying came out of a place of love, but she also knows Drax and knew that in that moment he wouldn't fully understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It that slapped me in the face emotionally, and like when she did that to him, I just started crying. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, bro, she cares so much about this dude.
Mm-hmm.
I that she'll
Yeah.
break her own rule to make sure he never stops being himself. That she never is the person who keeps him from being himself,
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't want him to feel bad. She didn't want him to change, right? To take it as, oh, y'all think I'm an idiot, even you, right? My best friend out of all of you.
Mm-hmm.
I should do this and change and that. She's like, no, it's important that we love him as he is.
Yeah,
So she
man.
made sure that he stayed him, and
Mm.
that shit slapped me in the face, bro.
Well, we've kind of really hit a lot of the major notes, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the end credit scene.
Yeah.
So,
I
like we talked about, this is the end of this iteration of the Guardians. But for those out there who don't know, who aren't, like I said, we're not Guardians experts by any means. But in the comics, the Guardians of the Galaxy roster is something that is constantly changing. Like the
Constantly.
roster that we have in these movies, like Star-Lord, Gamora, that wasn't even the original lineup of Guardians.
No,
So it's a
no.
team that is always changing. So like I said before, the galaxy will always need its guardians. So I have no doubt in my mind that we will get more Guardians movies in some time in the future. Like I said, it just won't
So,
be with this team of Guardians. But like I said, so what in the end credit scene, we kind of are teased of what this new team is. And so the new team is composed of Rocket, Kraglin, Groot, Phyla-Vell, and am I missing?
Cosmo,
Oh yeah, Cosmo.
Adam Warlock.
Oh yeah. Oh, wow. Probably the biggest one I'm forgetting. Adam Warlock. Yeah.
And Nebula, she just happens to be manning Nowhere, which we now know has been made like a movable spaceship as well and weaponized. So
Yeah.
that Guardians base HQ is there. She will be in charge of Nowhere.
I was just gonna say that's kind of a question that is a little open ended. Is if Nowhere is still gonna be Guardians headquarters, which I don't see why it wouldn't be.
I don't see
But
why not.
but yeah, so like I said, the end credits kind of tease this new team of Guardians. Going off of that though, Gorgon, I want to ask you, so with your best comic knowledge and your best conspiracy brain, who it can be people that I just mentioned that are in this new roster or people not in this new roster. Who do you think are going to come back to the MCU? We've seen, I think Zoe Saldana has said that, she's done with Gamora after this volume. Dave Bautista has been pretty vocal about being more or less done with Drax once James Gunn exits the picture. So with all that, who would you say is coming back? And whether it's in a Guardians film or something else, like a cameo in another film, maybe Secret Wars. What do you think?
All of them that we have right there at the end, they're all coming back. Right, that we get set up for the new one. Yeah,
new
absolutely.
Guardians.
I think Mantis will come back. I think we're gonna get Moondragon at some point. Right, we're gonna get some of the bigger key players of Guardians in the comics, I think for sure. Like so we're gonna go see Mantis become the queen bitch that she's supposed to be in space, right? Now, like they set that up perfect with her. If a new director picks it up and does right, that's what we're gonna get. I think we know Star-Lord will come back.
Yeah, so that was another end credit scene.
Post credits,
so, yeah, like we talked about. The post credit says Star-Lord will return. So that is the one confirmed person that we do know will be back in some form or fashion is Peter Quill, Star-Lord.
Yeah, it's and I think oh God. Yo, Adrian, Sylvester Stallone. I think I had to remember his name.
Had to get that out to get it.
Yeah, I had to remember his name. I think Sylvester Stallone will return if asked. I think Miley Cyrus will return if asked. Because she voices. I remember right, the robot head of the original one.
I was gonna say, I think she might have been recast in this though. I think it's someone else doing what is the robot's name? X923 or some crap like that. I just saw an interview with Gunn where he said so and so did the voice. And I was like, wait, I thought that was Miley Cyrus in the second one. We'll look that up, but
I think we're for sure gonna get Sylvester coming back. Right, we got Michael Rooker's Yondu for like less than 6 seconds on the screen, right? In a vision to Kraglin, and I love that. So it's because Kraglin looked up at him like he was a dad, and it was nice to see that Kraglin got some closure there too. So I was hoping Kraglin would have been a little more equipped and badass and stepping up into Yondu's shoes more when by the beginning of this film, right, with the time that's passed for him to practice with the Yaka arrow. I like that we got his moment on screen of him learning to whistle and feel it with your heart, but I definitely think Kraglin will return. There's at this point, right, that whole end group that we have there of them, I think is the key ones that will return. I think Mantis is going to return for sure, and we know Star-Lord is. And I wouldn't be surprised if the others are out because it's been 10 years of their life and a journey and they're ready to be out, right? I'm sure so, and then might come back for a cameo if asked here or there, but it would have to be the right thing for them, I like that. I like that. I don't. I'm very opinionated about the Star-Lord thing. I'm gonna. It's fucking stupid. Are you kidding me?
Dude, come on.
What? It's hear me out.
We're gonna have to disagree here again. We're gonna disagree.
Here, let me get it out, and then we'll see. Okay.
Talk your shit, bro.
Here's
Talk your shit.
Okay. All right. Star-Lord is gonna go to Earth to chase down his granddad and spend time on Earth. Okay, but like Star-Lord's gonna return. Okay, but like where is he gonna return on Earth? Because like, what is the point? I have
answers for you.
Stronger, faster, we have stronger, faster, better heroes on Earth that can blow him out of the water in a blink of an eye with their powers, right? He is over 30 years behind at understanding Earth culture. He is miles behind in terms of power scaling, okay? And he functions better with the team than solo. That's kind of his thing. It's his huge thing in the comics. It's his huge thing in the MCU. There's no advantage to him being on Earth. And unless he returns and it's something crashes door that drags him back to space, I'm going to be pissed about it. Right? I'd send that bitch back to space where he's Star-Lord. Let him get his powers grown fully. Let him have the solar gun, right? I get him back with the team. I send him to space. And the thing, even in space, until he gets his powers, right? I really going popping off for him in comics. There's not really a whole lot special going on for Star-Lord, right? It's the team that makes the man. Why send the bitch back to space? I do not want him to stay on Earth for very long. Oh my God, I send him to space, please.
I have one word for you, Gorgon. One word that will make everything make sense. Nova. Nova, bro. That's why he's on Earth, bro. He has to be there for Richard Rider. Richard Rider's getting his powers, man, and he's gonna need help controlling all that Nova Corps energy. I mean, we know it's confirmed Nova is coming. It's in the works. It's been a project in the works forever. Him and Star-Lord team up all the time in the comic books. Richard Rider is from Earth. Nova Corps is already decimated. There you go. That's how you get it. Nova, bro.
That drags him to space.
Oh no, he'll come back to space. But
I don't want him to try to be like, I can help you with your powers, because let's be real, on Earth, he's not the guy to do that.
I don't know necessarily you just mentioned help him with his powers, but he can.
Captain Rambo, Spectrum, Captain Marvel, they are way better equipped at being like, bro, let us help you with this, right?
But what I'm saying,
Star-Lord is,
But what I'm saying though is Star-Lord knows of the Nova Corps. He knows of Xandar. Obviously, Xandar, the Nova Corps, had huge parts to play in the first volume. So
I didn't think it would be.
That's the connection. That's like not saying he's going to teach him how to use the Nova power, but he's going to be that kind of partner for him to kind of usher him on his hero's journey.
Don't like him being on Earth. There's just not a point for him to be on Earth long term. That's just my take.
Other than character,
I just don't want him on Earth long term.
Other than character like catharsicism, no. But I mean, for the character of Peter Quill, if we were just talking about his journey throughout these films, he finally gets to go home. He finally gets to go home and be with family. You know what I mean? So from a character point, it makes sense that he goes to Earth, but not to stay there. Not to stay there. I'm saying he'll leave, but I think it's good that he's going back. He needs to go back home. Like we said, he's on a journey to find himself in this movie. And what better way to truly discover who you are than going back home and going back to his grandfather that knew him before Star-Lord, before he was taken by the Ravagers, when he was still just a little earthly young man, Yeah,
I disagree with the home on principle.
Hey, that's fine. I love disagreeing.
I get go back home and meet your grandpa. I don't get stay on Earth. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense for me. And I don't want to call Earth home because it's not for him. We just had 2 and 3 movies of journey with home being where you choose it to be and family being the people that you choose to call family. Right? That was his family. That was his home with the Guardians. And now he's like, no, I'm going to head back to Earth. He just was home. He just had family. He didn't have to go to Earth to find it. It was right there. And he had 3 movies of learning that lesson every single fucking movie. Like,
I totally agree.
Why go,
I totally agree.
To call it home? Why go to Earth for family? They're right there.
Like I said, the only thing that I'll add, like I said, I agree with everything you're saying. The only thing I will add is, like I said, he needs to learn who he is without the Guardians. Like you said, the major theme has been this found family. Like he found his family, but again, it's like without Gamora there, he's on this kind of self-discovery thing. So again, to me, everything you're saying, I totally agree with, but I would just add on that extra little layer of now that, you know, the Guardians have kind of completed their arc, he's now trying to figure out who he is not being a leader of the Guardians. That's the only thing I would add. But like I said, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I agree with all your points. I just would just add a little bit more to it.
If you would have told me 10 years ago, I'd be sitting here having a conversation with you, fucking mad as hell that James Gunn just decided that Star-Lord's going back to Earth. I would have been like, why would I give a fuck about that, right? And here I am. That has me the most heated is the way he left Star-Lord at the end. I never would have imagined it. Never would have imagined it. Guys, we loved the movie. It was a great movie. I'm giving it 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10?
Well,
I agree, bro. I give it 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 stars. Freaking,
how would you rank it with the Guardians projects, best to worst, all 4? I number 1 through 4. What would you put at number 1?
See, it's really hard for me with stuff like this, especially like these trilogies, because I'm a freaking nerd, you know what I mean? And I'm also like a film nerd. Like I love movies in itself too. And to me, it's like the reason Guardians 3 works so well is because we have 1 and 2. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to put it.
Them for me, I'll do it.
I'll say you do it.
2,
you do it.
2
is your favorite.
3, 1 special.
Okay.
Christmas special at the bottom. That's
okay.
And I love them all. Yeah, I think that's the order I'm going to put them in. And I know the internet shits on too, so like people are probably going to grill me in the comments. Grill me in the comments below. I argue back with me. Try to explain to me how Star-Lord makes sense being on Earth. Fight me, you peasants. No, I'm kidding. But do tell us your comment list. Or comment like the order you would rank them in from best to worst or favorite to least favorite. If you don't have number 2 in the top 2 positions, you're wrong. I'm not going to judge you, but you're wrong. Thank you guys for coming out. We've been super glad that y'all came out to listen to us, to watch us, however you did. We hope y'all enjoyed the movie. We hope you enjoyed listening to us today. Like I said, comment down in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, if you saw the movie, your thoughts on the movie, comment your favorites, favorite moments, your favorite parts. Tell your friends that the Sons of Mjolnir are talking about it with open spoilers. So if they want to listen to nerds talk about it with open spoilers, here we are. Thank y'all for being here. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope your stacks are fat. We hope you guys stay hydrated and your week goes well.
Absolutely. Couldn't said it better myself. Thank you, everybody out there. We will see you all next time.
I'm on this all day.